launched by Irish Republicans to end British rule in Ireland and establish an independent republic. This took place while the United Kingdom was heavily engaged in the First World War. Organised by a 7-man military council, the rising began on Easter Monday, 24th of April 1916, and lasted for 6 days. Members of the Irish Volunteers, led by schoolmaster and Irish language activist Patrick Pearse, joined by the smaller Irish citizen army of James Connolly and 200 women of Cumann na mBan, seized key locations in Dublin and proclaimed an Irish Republic. The British Army brought in thousands of reinforcements as well as artillery and gunboat. Fierce street fighting ensued in and around the city centre, with the rebels putting up stiff resistance, slowing the British advance and inflicting heavy casualties. Elsewhere in Dublin, the fighting mainly consisted of sniping and long-range gun battles. The main rebel positions were gradually surrounded and bombarded with artillery. There were isolated actions in other parts of Ireland, with attacks on the RSC barracks at Ashburn, County Meath and in County Galway. The town of Enniscorthy was also taken. Germany agreed to send arms shipments to the rebels, but the British intercepted it just before the rising began. Volunteer leader Owen MacNeill issued a countermand to halt the rising, which greatly reduced the number of rebels mobilised. With greater numbers and superior weapons, the British Army suppressed the rising. Pearse agreed to an unconditional surrender on Saturday, the 29th of April. After the surrender, the country remained under martial law. About 3,500 people were taken prisoner by the British, many of whom had played no part in the rising, and 1,800 men of them were sent to internment camps or prisons in Britain. Most of the leaders of the rising were executed following court-martial.
Get up there, you bleeding bastard! Come on! On now! Where are you still teaching the light? You found yourself fighting the real army? There's 200 green shells, get in there! Lights, water, and accommodation for you now, gentlemen.
Captain Sir, these are your prisoners. Hardy Pearse, Thomas Clark, Thomas McDonough, and Joseph Plunkett.
Well, some real prizes here. Jail, gentlemen. I believe you will not be with us for very long.
Thank you, sir. Indeed, we do not expect to enjoy the comfort of your chair for too long. Your superiors are eager to see us.
See these men to their cells.
Yes, sir. Come on.
The sooner we're rid of them, the better. Wasn't one of them injured?
Yes, that was Joseph Plunkett. He was in hospital last week. He was detained there for a while, but when he was released, he joined up with the others.
That's dedication for you. I only wish we had a few more men like that in our ranks. Wasn't James Connolly due to be here?
Yes, sir. James Connolly badly injured. He's detained in hospital, but he's going to be brought here prior to his execution, although that doesn't seem fair.
Save your sympathy. What has to be done, has to be done.
Sir,
Well, quite. Let's go, Lieutenant. There's plenty of paperwork awaiting our attention.
Our story today takes a look at 3 of the rebel fighters who were executed after the rebellion. We hope to give you a feel for what it must have been like for them and those that they loved. The first person we introduce to you is Thomas Clark, who was born at Hurst Castle, Milford-on-Sea, Hampshire, England, opposite Isle of Wight, to Irish parents Mary Palmer and James Clark, who was a sergeant in the British Army. In 1865, after spending some years in South Africa, Sergeant Clark was transferred to Dungannon, County Tyrone, where Thomas grew up. At the age of 20, he joined the IRB, and by 1880, he was the head of the local IRB. In August that year, after a member of the RIC had shot and killed a man during riots between the Orange Order and the Ancient Order of Hibernians in Dungannon, Clark and other IRB members attacked some RIC men in Irish Street. They were driven back, however, and Clark, fearing arrest, fled to the United States. In 1883, he was sent to London to blow up the London Bridge, but was arrested. and along with 3 others was tried and sentenced to penal servitude for life at London's Old Bailey. He subsequently served 15 years in Pentonville and other British prisons. In 1896, he was one of 5 remaining Fenian prisoners in British jails, and a series of public meetings in Ireland called for their release. Following his release in 1898, he moved to Brooklyn in the US, where he married Kathleen Daly, whose uncle John Daly he had met in prison. Clark worked for the Clonmel under John Devoy. In Ireland, he opened a tobacconist shop in Dublin and immersed himself in the IRB, which was undergoing a substantial rejuvenation under the guidance of younger men such as Bulmer, Hobson, and Dennis McCulloch. Clark had a very close kinship with Hobson, who along with John McDermott became his protege.
Sergeant, we wish to visit 3 of your prisoners. Thomas MacDonagh and my sister's fiancé, Joseph Plunkett. My husband's name is Thomas Clark.
Wait here.
I can't believe it's come to this. You don't think they'd be harmed? Hush, please. You don't want to be upsetting yourself. You don't want Joseph to see you like this. We have to stay strong now, for ourselves and for them.
Do you think they'll let us talk to our dad?
Of course they will, John. In a few minutes they will. Don't worry.
If I see them one at a time, which one of you wants to go first?
We'll wait. Let these young boys see their father first. Thank you very much for your kindness, ma'am.
Thank you, Mrs. MacDonagh.
Not at all.
Stay here, ma'am. You will be the talk.
Dad!
Haven't waited too long.
Not long at all.
Why are you going on? Don't swamp our dad. Go on, give us a minute. Come on, let's reconnect the jail. How are you?
Well, I'm afraid I'm not going to be coming home from jail this time. But I won't be staying here too long either.
Oh, God. Oh. What's to happen? Oh. Oh. Oh.
You look after your mother now, John. And your brothers. And help your mother with the shop.
I will.
Kathleen, I haven't got much time. I need you to give this message to Irish people. I and my fellow citizens believe we have struck the first successful blow for Irish freedom. And the next blow, which we have no doubt Ireland will strike, will win through. With this belief, we will die happy.
I will. I will.
Thomas MacDonagh was a Tipperary man and grew up in a household filled with music, poetry and learning, and was instilled with a love of both English and Irish culture from a young age. MacDonagh spent several years as a scholastic in preparation for a missionary career. However, after a few years he realised that it wasn't for him and left. He published many poems and was a teacher at St. Culman's College, Fermoy, County Cork, where he also formed a branch of the Gaelic League. While in Fermoy, MacDonagh was one of the founding members of ASDI, the Secondary Teachers Association, which was formed in the Fermoy College in 1908. He moved to Dublin, where he established strong friendships with Owen MacNeill and Patrick Pearse.
How did we feel?
As well as can be expected. Room service is a little slow.
Oh, stop it, Thomas. I believe that you're like the men that occupied Jacob's biscuit factory.
Aye, indeed. But we weren't chartered rub anyway. No, we were wasted again.
What is that, Tom?
Brilliant.
No easy way to say this. We're scheduled for execution in the morning. I'm sorry, Lord. But I I wasn't afraid to face the might of the British Empire, but I have dreaded this moment. Now you have to be strong for our children's sake. Tell them Daddy loved them. And tell them Daddy loved them as much as he loved Ireland.
I promise they'll know every one of your poems and plays by heart.
God help.
So,
Just let Grace know before she sees Joseph.
I will. Those are the words of the twice.
We had to try and do it. It's our country. We had to give it our very best. One day it will happen. We're too stubborn to keep it where we give up.
What will it cost us?
I don't know. All I know the cost this time has been heavy. But you will know. I love you. I love you all.
Oh, Joseph, my brave man.
Thank God they let me see you, Grace.
You had no business joining the fight. You should have stayed in your hospital bed.
I couldn't leave to stay in my hospital bed. We've been working towards this for too long. I couldn't leave the others to go out on their own. I could get up, so that's what I did. I got up and I walked to Patrick.
But one more man had been missed.
I would have known one more man was missing, but I couldn't abide that, Grace. I'm sorry.
I was stubborn to the last. You always told me what's going to happen. Why?
They're executing all the signatories of the Proclamation of Independence.
I'm going to lose you. I can't. Oh, Joseph. Oh, wait. Joseph, we're not yet married. Will you marry me this day?
But I believe in your widow.
I don't care. I want you to be married. Say yes, Joseph.
If I can marry you, if it's possible, I will.
I'll make it possible, one way or another. Is there a priest here? My fiancé is being executed here. We wish to be married beforehand.
Are you sure it's such a right?
Oh, more than anything, Paul.
I will arrange it for you this evening.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Joseph Plunkett contracted tuberculosis at a young age, and it was to be a lifelong burden. He spent part of his youth in the warmer climates of the Mediterranean and North Africa. He was educated at the Catholic University School and by the Jesuits at Belvedere College in Dublin, and later at Stonyhurst College in Lancashire, where he acquired some military knowledge from the Officers' Training Corps. Throughout his life, Joseph Plunkett took an active interest in Irish heritage and the Irish language. He joined the Gaelic League and, along with Thomas MacDonagh, had an interest in theatre, and both were early members of the Irish Volunteers, joining their provisional committee. Plunkett's interest in Irish nationalism spread throughout his family, notably to his younger brothers, George and John, as well as his father, who allowed his property in Kimmage, South Dublin, to be used as a training camp for young men who wished to escape conscription in England during the First World War. Men there were instead trained to fight for Ireland. Sometime in 1915, Joseph Plunkett joined the IRB and was sent to Germany to meet with Roger Casement, who was negotiating with the German government on behalf of Ireland. Casement's role as emissary was self-appointed, and he was not a member of the IRB, who wished to have one of their own contact Germany to negotiate German aid for an uprising the following year. Plunkett was seeking a shipment of arms and successfully got a promise from the Germans to coincide with the rising. That day, when Grace heard that Joseph was to be shot at dawn, she bought a ring in a jeweller's shop in Dublin city centre, and with the help of a priest, persuaded the military authorities to allow them to marry. She and Joseph were married on the night of the 3rd of May in the chapel of Kilmainham Jail, a few hours before he was executed. As we gather in chapel here in old Kilmainham Jail, I think about these past few weeks. Schooldays, they have told us we must yearn for liberty. But all I want in this dark place is to have you here with me. Oh, Grace, just hold me in your arms and let this moment linger. They take me out at dawn and I will die. With all my love I'll place this wedding ring upon your finger. There won't be time to share our love, for we must say goodbye. Now I know it's hard for you, my love, to ever understand the love I bear for these brave men, the love for this dear land. But when Corrie called me to his side down in the GPO, I had to leave my own sick bed. To him I had to go. Oh, Grace, just hold me in your arms and let this moment linger. They take me out at dawn and I will die. With all my love I'll place this wedding ring upon your finger. There won't be time to share our love, for we must say goodbye. Now as the dawn is breaking, my heart is breaking too. On this May morn as I walk out, my thoughts will be of you. And I'll write some words upon the wall so everyone will know I love so much that I could see his blood upon the road. Oh, Grace, just hold me in your arms and let this moment linger. They'll take me out at dawn and I will die. With all my love I'll place this wedding ring upon your finger. There won't be time to share our love, for we must say goodbye. No, there won't be time to share our love, for we must say goodbye.
Let's get this thing on the stretcher. One, two, three, lift! Forward, hard!
Grace was elected to Sinn Féin executive in 1917. Her sister Muriel died of heart failure while swimming the same year. Grace shared the care of Muriel's two children with her eldest sister until 1919. She was a loving aunt to both throughout her life. During the Civil War, Grace was arrested with many others in February 1923 and interned at Kilmainham Jail for 3 months and was released in May 1923. She died suddenly on the 13th of December 1955 in her apartment in South Richmond Street, Portobello. Her body was removed to St. Kevin's Church, Harrington Street, and among the attendees at her funeral was President Sean T. O'Kelly. She was buried with full military honours close to the Republican plot in Glasnevin Cemetery. And so ends our reenactment of events that took place 101 years ago. We hope this has helped to give you a brief glimpse of what that time and its people were like. Thank you to all those who helped make this evening possible, and thanks to you for coming. And just special thanks to the reenactment team with the BOAC from Ashburn. And one more thing is that the art and floral exhibition is on in the Church of Ireland churches across the way here, if anybody would like to go to it. So have a great weekend, people.